Can you guys see this? Okay. So I'm just gonna go over some basics of PyGame. I haven't really done that much with it until today, but I had this like crash course thingy that that used it, so I figured might as well try to something a little interesting. So the first thing that let me present. Okay. So the first thing you need to do is install make sure that PyGame is installed. You can check that by trying to import PyGame, and if there's an error, then you probably don't have it. But you can just do pip install PyGame or look up the exact commands that they recommend you to use. Um, so now before you get started with PyGame, you have to obviously import all the necessary stuff. So you import PyGame, and then we'll get into what PyGame sprite is and what a group and a sprite is, and then uh, sys is just your system, and this can be helpful uh, to importing sleep if you want to. In the game uh, that I did, it's basically like Alien Invader, but instead of like a ship, it's like a student, and then instead of aliens, it's like computer science courses. Except I wanted to make it so you could see like CS 101, CS 301, and like things like that, but that didn't work. So we just made do with something else. But the most important thing, one of the most important things in your program is going to be the main game loop. So, well, before you get to the main game loop, you have to initialize PyGame, and then you have to initialize the screen. So the screen is like it's a special object in PyGame because we use the PyGame's like their methods or functions to update it. So you can set the size to whatever you want, and then just a caption for the window. And these colors are in RGB, which you guys probably familiar with. That's weird. And anyway, so in this game we have one student, the ship, then the bullets from the student, and then the courses, which is like the aliens. And then in the wild, this is like basically the heart of the program because this is going to run forever. Well, until the user either quits or presses Q. I think this is what this game does specifically. But at each iteration, we're going to be checking for events. Events are it can be anything like pressing a key down or letting go of it, or pressing down with your mouse pad, or even moving around with the joystick. So any kind of user input would be an event. We're going to go into more depth about that, and every event has to be dealt with appropriately, and how you deal with it depends on what kind of event it is. And then after that, you can update all of your objects, and lastly, you want to update your screen. So that's basically what you have. You have a screen that you have to initialize. Then you have your objects that you've made. And then in this while loop, you want to check for events if you have any user interaction. And then you want to update your your objects that you've made. And then lastly, you want to update your screen. And we'll go through all of these steps. So first with the events, I don't know what happened. To my picture. Can you guys see this okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you remember, we did check events. That's the first function that's called. So in check events, there's this function pygame.event.get. So basically, Pygame, what it does is it has an event queue system that it is continually adding all the events that it picks up on into, and it's like it's iterable, so you can go through. Oh, if you guys are asking questions, I don't know if I can see them, but anyway. Oh, okay, nice. Okay. Thank you. So basically, we're iterating through all of the events that Pygame is picking up on, and we're checking the event types. If it's pygame.quit, that's if you X out of the window, then it'll close the program. If it's a key down, then we have this other um, command function that only handles event key events where you're pressing down on a button, and here we're handling if we're going to the if you press the right button, if you go to the left, if you press space is to shoot a bullet, and left and right is to move the student, and then Q is to quit. And then there's also key up, so when you let go of the key, and if you see here, when you press down on a key, it sets the student or like the ship's flag that they're moving to true, and then when you let go of the key, it sets it to false. So now let's take a deeper look into student and classes. So in Pygame, um, each object in the game should have its own class. So anything that you want to have multiple instances of, you want to make a class for it um, instead of just having code that continuously. I mean, it just makes more sense to um, to make a class instead of like putting all of that stuff, all the data and functions into this main game. The main it's basically you have to like think about it with in an object oriented way. So every object needs its own class. So then you can make multiple instances of the object, which you can manipulate with its methods. And two of these important methods are init, which will just initialize your object. And here you can see that we pass screen to init because we need the coordinates. So oh, in Pygame, everything is basically like everything's a rectangle, and you can get the rectangles coordinates and things like that. So get rectangle, and here you can also load images. So here we're loading an image, and then we're setting that this student's rectangle to that image's rectangle, and then we're getting the screen's rectangle. So we can set the student's rectangle to be in the middle and bottom of the screen's rectangle. So if this is a screen and like this mouse is like the student, then we're setting it down here. And then we have other functions like center that just once the game's over, it puts it back into the middle. And then update will change the values uh of the object's rectangle or the student's rectangle. But then blip me is what actually draws that rectangle or that image and or the object to the screen. So here we're actually manipulating the center by adding or subtracting the speed depending on whether we're going right or left. But here where this is where we're gonna draw it to the screen. We don't do that yet. We do it at the end. Now, there's also the course class, and this is a special. I mean, most classes are like this, I guess. In PyGame, they inherit from Sprite. So Sprite is um, it's like it's a class that has a whole bunch of very useful objects. I mean, it has a whole bunch of very useful functions. And by making your class inherit from Sprite, you have access to all of those very useful functions. One of these very useful functions detects whether any of your objects have collided. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever tried, but imagine trying to write the code out to see if two rectangles have collided, or I don't know. That might be a little too much, but by making it inherit from Sprite, then you can just easily use it's basically like almost like I mean, not really like the same library, but you are using PyGame PyGame to your advantage basically. And over here in the init function, we have to do super and then init, and basically all this does is call. Does anyone know what this does? Actually, super. Yeah, exactly. It calls the constructor of the class that it inherits from. So that's exactly right. So here we have to call the sprite. We have to initialize the sprite so then we can know. So then we can use all of its functions and stuff. And just like student, there's also you're also loading an image and you're setting its coordinates and stuff. And you also you have an update function that just manipulates the rectangles. And then there's the blip_me that actually renders or draws the image. And here we have an example so these are the bullets. This also will inherit from Sprite. Okay, the reason that student didn't inherit from Sprite, but course and bullet did, is when you're playing the game ends, or like you don't have to know if the ship. Oh, I guess you do. Never mind. Anyway, so the bullet is doing the same thing, but instead of loading an image of a bullet, you can actually just draw a rectangle. So what this will do is this is the position, so 0, 0 in when you're talking about like a screen, or 0, 0 is at the top left corner, and then 3 is the width, and then 15 is the height. So anyway, we're just like the other ones, we're initializing, updating, and drawing. And now it's wait, if we go back after everything is made. Oh, we could talk about group after. So now we can update all of these what are they called? Functions or objects, I mean, we can update them. So I mean, well, first you have to create all the core. This is basically like the aliens, creating all the aliens. And these numbers are they're hard coded. It could have the better way to do it would have been to use the width and the height of the screen, but I was honestly having problems trying to get this to not be glitchy. And for some reason, these numbers didn't seem that bad, but they do still glitch. You guys will see. But basically, you can make a new course and then add it to your group of courses, which is, okay, maybe I should talk about that. So PyGame also has groups. And groups is basically like an array or just a collection, something that'll hold all of these these objects together. So you can so that way you can just do when you do when you want to like do something on all of the on all of the objects, instead of having to iterate through it, you can just call the you can just do this. Wait, there's an example somewhere over here, I think. Okay, yeah, like right here, courses is a group of course objects. So you can just do dot draw to draw all of the course instead of iterating through it like you did. I don't know why you have to iterate there, but you can just do it on everything at once. And also you can check one of the benefits to the group too is you have to you want to know if um all the courses are gone, like all the aliens. You want to know if they're all dead. So you have to keep track of all of them, and instead of keeping track of separate ones, it just makes more sense to put them in a group. So here, this is a function that I don't show, but it just checks whether they're going to the edge, because they move horizontally and then they drop down a little. And once it hits the edge, all it does is reverse direction and then drop down. And then we have to check if any of the courses hit the student. So here you can see that you're passing one object, just a student, and then courses. And it will check if student hits any of them. So it's checking on all of them instead of just one at a time. And then you can also check whether any of the courses have hit the bottom of the screen, because if they hit the bottom of the screen, then that means that they win.
So is Sprite collide using the rectangles to sense collisions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And okay. In update S. Okay. And then we also have to update all of the bullets. You just want to move them accordingly to their speed, and then remove any bullets that have gone off the screen by iterating through a copy of the bullets, and then just removing the ones that are past 0. And then here you're checking if any of the courses have been shot by the bullets, and if they have been. Okay, so this function, I didn't know what these two were, but bullets, it's checking if any of the bullets have collided with any of the courses, so 2 groups. And then these last 2 arguments are do kill. So basically it's, do you want to kill the ones that have collided from this group? And do you want to kill the ones that have collided from this group? So if any bullet has collided with any course, then we want to kill both of them. And then if there are no more courses, no more aliens, then you win. The bullets have to be eliminated, and then you have to create them again. And then lastly, the last function that's called in the while loop is update screen, where you fill it in. You refill the screen because all of the to get rid of all of the everything that's been drawn in the last time, I guess. And then you have to redraw all of your objects. So here we iterate through all these, and then we draw a bullet. And then in student, we blit it, which blitting is like rendering the image. So it's different than updating, because updating, you're manipulating where the position of the object is going to be, but then blit is actually putting it onto the screen. And then the last thing that you do, the very last thing, is pygame.display.flip. And what this does is it updates your screen. It updates the display to be the most recently drawn screen. So if you look at this loop, update screen is the last thing. And then the last thing that you call an update screen is pygame.display.flip. This is where after all the updates, we want to finally bring them all to we want to finally update the screen to show all the changes. Yes. Yeah. And then this is
What's the difference between bullet and draw?
okay, so Blit, we use Blit for student and course because we're loading images for both of them. So there's uh an image for student that has, so you have to render an image, but then with Bullet you're actually drawing a rectangle. You're not loading anything in. It's not an image. It's a rectangle that we fill in with color. This makes it white. So you're drawing it, and instead of like having to render an image, it just draws a rectangle and fills it in with color.
Okay.
Can I say something? I
Yeah,
know in other stuff, I know blitting on a lower level moves certain bits of data into graphical memory. It's called bit blitting. You might want to look into that more. I'm not sure if that's what this does though, but and it moves into memory. And I'm assuming draw just actually puts it on the screen. I don't know. Just a point.
that makes sense. Yeah, that sounds interesting. I should definitely have looked into that more. But this was what I was talking about. These are the courses, all the different Piazza things. And then this is the student down here. I'll, oh, you guys can see that? Oops. Okay. Change window. I'm gonna just do my entire screen, I guess. Can you guys see my?
Yep.
Okay. So these are the courses, and this is a student down here. See, it's a little glitchy. I don't know why it's acting up right now. But I want one of them to hit me. You can also, like in the original game, you're supposed to make it like increasingly faster, and you can do that by making it a class that holds the settings for the game, which includes all the speed. Yeah, see, that was a little wonky. I don't know what happened there. And then you pass an object of like a settings object to all the other objects that will be modified accordingly, basically.
I
So
have
it's a
a
lot of
question. Oh, sorry.
yeah, what's up?
Do you know how PyGame regulates frame rate? Because I
No.
Oh, okay. Because all I saw is you had the wild true loop, and on super fast computers, my guess was it would just keep going really quickly. But I don't know if PyGame does that. I can look it up right now.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I actually did I put sleep point one in in the while loop and then it went super slow. So I don't know. I was like I kind of gave up at that point. But yeah, this is just this
That's what Unity does.
I just looked it up, and PyGame has like a clock function that'll set or like a clock object that'll set the FPS.
Huh. Yeah, I know. In Unity, I think it's delta time. They call it. It's the same thing in like simulations, physics simulations. Rue Piazza. It's horribly designed, in my opinion. That's true. That's true. I think I spent 10 minutes trying to find where the posts were. It's probably just my fault, but it's like this tiny box in the top middle of the screen. Anyway.
And yeah, that's pretty much it. See, it can, I don't know, it's like, yeah, other numbers weren't really working, but oh, yeah, that's probably it. Wait, let me see. Yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, anything Python is just like, what? Why am I not using Python? Oh, performance. For most use cases, it's fine.
Thanks for coming,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.